I'm Jeff Miller, 2049 Outfitters.
Hello, I'm Pam Hoffman, Everyday Spacer. At Everyday Spacer, we show regular folks how to personally and directly participate in space exploration, science, and astronomy. We're here on Friday nights at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, 12 midnight Eastern Time, and 12 noon on Saturday in Hong Kong. We're broadcasting live from Lakewood, Ohio.
And Thousand Oaks, California. Happy New Year, folks, and thanks for joining us. Tonight, Pam is hanging out with Dawn Jenkins in Northern Ohio. We'll be back in 8.3 seconds. For many years, Dawn worked at NASA Glenn Research Center under contract. She worked as a budget analyst supporting science and technology projects, the Space Shuttle, and International Space Station projects. She also supported the Power and Propulsion Division, the Diversity Office, and the Office of Chief Engineer. For 5 years, Dawn worked full-time as an outreach coordinator. This work covered public, educational, technical, and internal outreach, and she sometimes staffed exhibits at various conferences and events across the country.
I met Dawn in about 1987 at a craft store, and we've been friends ever since, and had some interesting adventures along the way. Dawn introduced me to amateur telescope making. She actually took me to a class that she had gone through for her first telescope, grinding a mirror, and I was there doing my first telescope, and Dawn did her second one, a 12.5-inch. We attended and helped run several space and astronomy related conferences over the years, although I did move to California in the fall of 1995. Dawn, it's so great to be here and hang out with you. Thanks for inviting me.
It's been great. It's been really great. I remember all those conferences we worked on and the things we did.
So I think we should do like an overview of your site. Oh, hey, Daniel.
Hey, Daniel.
It's Rachel Rose, yes. Because I think it's the navigation there has a bunch of the topics that really represent the things that you've done over the years, and it's a good place to kind of start, and then we'll kind of delve into some of the parts of that. And there you go. That's the link right here, right below. And go ahead and.
Well, I started working on Astro Stargate website many years ago. It was the early days of the internet, and I wrote Astro Stargate as a kind of a subject guide to help direct people to internet resources on astronomy, space exploration, contribution of women astronomers, Maya astronomy, observing, and many others. But the internet has grown a lot since then. There's many sites to find the information. So I have a different focus at Astros these days. I try to provide more information than just links to other sites. So in 2006, I completed a total rewrite of the website.
That's a big jump.
Yes, I changed the appearance, and this is what I came up with.
And Dawn has coded all of this. This is not on a like a WordPress platform or anything. She's gone in and done the code. So after all the things you hear about what she's done, she also coded her own whole entire website.
Yes, I
totally impressed with that.
And originally I taught myself, but I did get a degree in web development. So thank you very much, Scott.
Welcome, Scott. Thanks for being with us. Hey, Janier, thank you very much. Happy New Year to you too.
That's wonderful. I love spacey people.
Yes.
So if you slide the mouse over the pictures on the top, those little circles, the image in the gate in the center changes. So the first one there is the astronomy page, which Jeff is controlling. Thank you, Jeff. He is controlling the site. when you roll over it, the image in the center block there, yes, that is called a hero. I had a hero image back in 2006.
And I never heard of that before.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Everybody has a hero today, but not, like I said, they didn't call it that back then. So the first area we're going to talk about what different areas out there, what kind of information you can find on each area. In the astronomy area, this covers the science of astronomy. So here you're going to find professional organizations, journals, and actually there's quite a big section on satellite observatories, which is one of my favorite spacey subjects. And this astronomy page has a sub page for young astronomers, and I get a lot of activity there. I get teachers and scoutmasters that occasionally send me, oh, my kid found this on your site and thinks that you would like this.
Oh,
Hey, David.
And Cliff, we've got both of them from
Cliff.
today.
Cliff.
Hey, you guys are from down under, right?
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for coming from down under. I
Oh.
love it.
Hey, Dawn, you're with Alpo, right?
Yes, I'm a member of Alpo.
So is Cliff.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Cliff. You're Alpo too, huh?
Cool.
I always tell people, we're just dog meat now. The Alpo, for anyone who doesn't know, is the American Lunar and Planetary Observers.
Right.
It's a fairly well-established organization. You would definitely find them on the astronomy page, how to get to their site and everything.
Oh, cool.
And the other thing on the astronomy page, which I think would be of a lot of interest, astronomy on the internet, that is, we are
Of course
right
you
side
are.
up.
Of course you are.
And you're the ones who see the moon the right side up too. We always see it upside down. That drives me crazy. But astronomy on the internet will take you to remote telescopes, YouTube channels with good astronomy content or space content, actually, on that particular front. Anything that you can do on the internet. The internet does astronomy, online planetariums. There's sites like Sky Live that you can go to, and you can actually, plug in your coordinates and they'll send you a cookie and remember who you are. So there's things like that, and you get it from there.
Yeah, and you mentioned you heard from some scoutmasters and stuff. I've got a couple of those. The kids have like this. Oh, I found this really cool thing, and I'm like, you bet. It sounds like a great resource. I will put it on my site as soon as I can. I usually tell them within the week, and then I go and do it right away.
I try to do it right away.
I go, hey, it's done.
I also get some people who ask me to put things on my site that are not related to astronomy.
I know.
And I'm not going to let them on. I'm sorry.
No.
This is not anything to do with astrology, okay? It's astronomy that we talk about. Don't tell horoscopes. It's just astronomy.
And I always say I have no expertise in that area. I'm sorry, I cannot help you. I try to be very nice, though.
So I hope there's a lot of people out there who are really interested in space exploration, because space exploration is like my hottest area recently. I put all kinds of content up there. I'm very excited about space exploration because I believe that we have become the spacefaring people that we always dreamed of.
Right. That's the rocket circle, right?
During and after the first space race that we were
Yeah.
part of. And it's just incredible what people are so interested in. I see the next generation of space enthusiasts. They're moving into technical fields because they want to be part of the space exploration picture. And I love that because
so many young people. It's amazing. And it's like, oh, I don't know any of these people now.
Yeah, and this is the reason why I started Astra Stargate to encourage people.
Cool.
What was the most important accomplishment of Mayan astronomy?
That's a great question.
Wow, that is a great question.
And Dawn's done a lot of research on
their calendar system was really interesting because they meshed Venus and the moon. They had a lunar calendar,
Hmm.
but they meshed Venus and the moon together, and they also invented or independently discovered, however you want to look at it. They discovered zero as
Okay.
zero is a placeholder. It's a very important math concept.
Yes, it
And
is.
they had it. But their calendar system, they also had what they called see if I remember this right, because it's been a while, the Baktun, and not the Katun, and that was the 360 day calendar, where they just let the year process through that extra 5.25 days or whatever it is. So they ran out of sync. So one of the things I'd like to add to the astronomy page, and I'm really going to do it, is a calendar, because calendars are the bread and butter of astronomers, and that's all there is to it. And you'll hear a lot of things, but the best solar calendar that was ever invented is the one we use today. It is there's nothing that comes close to keeping Earth in sync with our days, because there's nothing we can do about it. The Earth does not turn around the sun in an even number of days. It just doesn't. And so the way we do it, with all the different, when do you add zero, when don't you, the 29th of February, when do you add it, we are like a quarter of a day off, or a half a day off at the most. And that just we keep going back and forth because of the adding of the extra day in February. It's really interesting. But you hear a lot of things where people are like, oh, so-and-so, they had the best calendar anywhere. But I think the Mayan astronomers they were fantastic astronomers.
Yeah. Ooh.
The Mesoamerican culture. Yeah. One of the things when we go into the Mayan page, or the ancient astronomers page, it talks about archaeoastronomy, and archaeoastronomy is a multidisciplinary subject. So culture is extremely important to the people who are looking at trying to understand the way those people in the past behaved. And there are Maya people alive today.
Oh, sorry.
And there's definitely a Mesoamerican. Oh, look at this. We got a swinger there.
Sorry. I'm trying to.
It's okay. It's okay.
They added a new one.
Yeah. So, I do know quite a bit about Mesoamerican culture. They did practice human sacrifice and bloodletting and things like that. But as they went through time, they were gradually moving away from that. And it is the sad thing about Mesoamerican culture. But they had a very deep, rich culture, which was destroyed by people who came from Europe. They came from Europe, and they said, you aren't really people, and they didn't have the right to do that, but that's what they did. So Mesoamerican culture is it was a very high culture. I mean, they were considered to be Stone Age because they didn't really develop metallurgy, however you want to say it. I'm having trouble talking here.
That's okay.
So human space.
They didn't have access to a lot of metals either, so that would be
right. And they didn't do the wheel because they were living in the mountains. Supposedly that's why they didn't do it.
Okay.
And David says likes the shirt.
Yeah.
I like these stuff.
Okay. Yeah, Mesoamerica.
Absolutely, David. Go ahead, read.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, Jeff.
Yeah. No, that's okay. You could read it too, and Cliff, please leave a link in the comments.
Are you up for that, Jeff?
Yeah.
So
much. It flashed on the screen, but I'll put it in the comments too.
Yeah, it should make it clickable whenever he adds it to the comments for you.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you're that interested enough to ask. Thank you very much.
I think you're gonna love it.
Yeah,
It's extensive.
there's a lot of rabbit
It's
holes
extensive.
to fall into. So
You
I
like
like to
rabbit
say,
holes?
I have over 350 pages on
Oh,
the
wow.
website that I manage there. It's a lot of fun because it's me,
Yeah.
me and my husband. I have a little bit of help here and there from some people giving me some criticism and comments, and why don't you do this? But basically, coding.
Oh, so you're ready to volunteer?
Yeah, I need volunteers.
I tell people this
Yeah.
squeaky wheel gets the job.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for your enthusiasm. What would you like to help with? I'm very serious. And they usually go away and say nothing more. So
yeah,
it's a win either way. They'll help or they'll go away.
Make sure
we're in the right
make
place.
sure you go to my contact page and
Yeah.
send me an email.
Oh, interesting.
Gender inequality. Boy,
Again, I have no expertise in that area. I can't
you're
comment.
jumping the gun again there, David, because we're not on the woman part yet. We're still trying to talk about human space.
Yeah, Dawn's planning on covering that, right, Dawn?
Oh, I'm fine on covering that.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's a gap that's
that
shrinking,
part,
but yeah, there's a page for that.
Yeah.
Of course there is.
Yeah, Cliff. Oh, you're welcome, Cliff. Stereotypes represent one of the major problems that affect the academic world and scientific progress.
Yeah,
Is it improving in the U.S.?
I kind of agree with Pam. I will say
some things here and there that are very encouraging. For example, my meetups. I started counting like who are women and who are men who are joining, and it was very definitely about 50 to 51%
that's
of
lovely.
each. Which, from my experience, having gone through the technical school and then in the industry, I was like the only woman. So often it was 25% or less.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I guess it's more interesting, or maybe it's I'm a woman. But yeah, the Everyday Spacer meetups, about half and half.
That's
I
good.
love that.
That's
I love
good.
that. I'm so pleased with, proud of that.
I would say that the younger members of our society in America, the women are more encouraged today than they ever were when I was growing up.
They don't listen to the crap as much, I think, either.
I don't know. I won't speak to that, but like when I was in school, women, when I was in high school, getting ready to go to college or whatever, women made 29 cents for every dollar the men made. And that's changed. There's still
up to 60 cents now.
There's still
dollar.
A difference.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to see that there's a lot of younger people who, they've been encouraged in a different way than when we were. They're not so stamped into a gender role.
Well, and I think certainly in my case, I've, raised my daughter a little different, and she definitely has a completely different idea about things than I did, and doesn't. Yeah. That's why I was saying I think they don't. Yeah, they don't see things the same way that we do.
My daughter-in-law, who has two sisters, her mother raised her to be very strong, and all of them to be very strong, and to go for to go for things that they wanted, and work towards, they weren't like you're going to be a housewife or whatever. They didn't get that, so
yeah.
That's what we put up with. I had friends who, who would tell me, and practically in tears, when I was a kid, every year I asked for a telescope, and every year I got a baby doll.
Oh,
so I mean, I think things have changed, but I don't know about. I don't know actually the percentages, because I haven't really been following that. I don't know what we think it is right now anyway.
So you want to finish up the segment?
Well, I would
hang on. Oh,
he's got another question. Yay.
Yeah, he's covering the subject for radio there in Australia.
That would be that's very interesting.
15, that sounds very low to me. I mean,
it does.
I think there's a lot of women who are
It does.
Well, and maybe it's getting jobs. It's getting
Yeah.
jobs.
And the other
It's
thing
possible.
Getting hired.
the other thing I can say, David, if you're covering the subject for radio, then you definitely want to look at some of the things that I have on the woman's accomplishment
Oh,
pages.
there you go.
Because,
Resource.
well, I go into some of the organizations, and there's, that if you go to their websites, they're going to have statistics for you.
Another rabbit hole. Good luck.
Yeah, but you will find that I'm trying to think if it's the American Society for the Advancement of Science. I don't. Oh, I know, the AAAS, the Professional Astronomers Association.
Mm,
They have a big women's chapter in there,
okay.
that you can go into and find information.
There you go, Dave.
I hope that helps you. I'm really glad you're covering that.
Oh, and he said, I guess in amateur astronomy, we see in Australia a lack of ladies getting into the hobby. They usually, quote, assist, unquote, their hubbies.
Oh, amen to that. We saw that big time, didn't we?
Yeah, that's still getting into it.
Yeah. It is a can of worms. It is a can of worms. And even I have to say it, we also didn't find a lot of people from, ethnic or, groups.
Mike Simmons does. He goes all over the world, and
Well, I'm talking about when we were
okay.
younger. I mean, because I don't go into the field and observe with people, especially since COVID, because my health doesn't let me observe as much as I want to.
Yeah.
But astronomy clubs, when I was doing the astronomy clubs, the people in the field, people going into amateur astronomy, there were way more men than women.
Well, and where was it? Nairobi, Jeff? That it was actually there were more women involved with astronomy than there were men. If you look for the episodes with Mike Simmons, especially the most recent one, there's information about that, and we could definitely connect you if you would like to, Dave. So, yeah,
we'll help you out there if you need help. Just drop us an email.
And one, different topic, Daniel tweet: if you ignore the Earth day year sync problem, 13 lunations equal one solar year, right? I didn't think they synced up like that.
No. There is a number of years where they do sync, and I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. Like, if I wanted to know, I'd look it up.
Yeah, because it's only 28 days for the moon, and
yeah.
So 28 by 13 is that?
Yeah, because the moon's orbit is, it's not a circle; it's an ellipse.
Right.
So, and it just the way it orbits does not get back to the same place it was, in an even number of days. It just doesn't do it. Mm-hmm. And ancient astronomers, most of them used lunar calendars.
Mm-hmm.
There were, as long as we're talking about women, there were actually women who worked in calendar making, because like, what was her name? Marie Winkelmann. She was in the mid 1800s. She and her husband were astronomers, and they actually published a calendar, and he died, and she pretty much took over the business. So, I mean, astronomers are the ones who made calendars. It's, all there is to it.
Yep. And then Dave says, the classic Mayan period, in its heyday, they developed a complex understanding of astronomy. How complex by today's standards?
Good question.
It's so hard to compare them. Even if you compare them to the standards of the time when we came in, into their culture. The people who were keeping track of that stuff they're telling you what day it is based on where the moon is. You know what I mean? Like they could tell you where it was. They could, they kept the days. They were day keepers, and it's hard because they destroyed all of their books, everything that they had that had information. They destroyed it, and we have these codices, these little pieces of a part of a book that was passed on to the like the Spaniards that came in there. If they were passing that book on, I guarantee you it was an out-of-date almanac that they didn't need anymore. I mean, seriously. So you have the Venus almanac, and we seem to have been able to identify that they had what they call the world tree. The world tree of the Mayan is the Milky Way galaxy. And what happens with the world tree, it starts to come up wrong way. It starts to come up at certain times of the year. And then eventually the Milky Way is standing upright on the
it's basically north and south,
horizon. Right? Yeah, well, it's standing straight up in the air, and at that point it's really a tree. That's where you get the world tree. And sometimes I wonder if that's where we get the idea of these, trees, this tree of lives and stuff like that. Is I really and truly do wonder if that is the Milky Way.
Wow.
And that's how we got it into our culture.
That's neat.
How do things enter into human thought? Because we know things are human thought because, we look up in the sky and we make pictures out of the stars in different cultures.
Well, I kind of thought that we got lit trees by someone deciding, hey, we need to put candles on this dead pine tree that's highly flammable.
I can't talk to that.
I have no expertise in that area.
Okay. Oh, he's making a comment about your doll.
Gosh, I'm sorry about that, Cliff.
Well, maybe not so bad.
David, pragmatically, the Maya associated the heavens with the gods, etc. Yes, I think a lot of cultures did that. That to me is pretty ancient and non-scientific thinking.
Yeah, they did. They did. And all that bloodletting was to please the gods.
Yeah.
It really was. It was like, oh, look, Venus is in the sky. Go kill somebody. Oh, look, Venus is partway up in the it's up halfway in the sky. And I'll take someone's head off. I mean, seriously. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, oh, that's great.
Well, you do, Cliff. That's interesting. Thanks for sharing. What? What are you laughing at?
Nothing.
It's bad when he says it that way. Something going on there. All right, you got any more comments for us?
Not at the moment.
All right, you want to
do
more of this?
Sure, let's go for it.
Am I okay? Do I need to go up or down? I think.
I'm still on there.
Okay.
I'm starting with the human space flight.
Okay. There, right?
Okay, we are in the. Are we back to the space area?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We don't see it on the screen though. So
we don't see it. Yeah.
Go ahead and share.
Oh, the right computer.
We're live when.
Yeah.
There we go.
There's that spaceship. That's the Apollo going into to the moon. Human space flight. We talk about the human activities with the International Space Station. There's a lot of information on the International Space Station there. I usually keep up with who's on their way up, who's on their way down. You'll find that on there. You'll find links to how to get to NASA's site on it. I'm very, very, ISS is a really wonderful laboratory in space.
Oh yeah.
They've extended it to 2030 for better or worse.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
I hadn't heard that.
And of course, I talk about Citizens in Space is one of the new pages on the space page. And that covers everyday, let's call them everyday citizens. Not all of them are rich. Some of them are really rich. Getting into space. They're getting into space on Blue Origin's New Shepard.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually SpaceX is bringing people to the space station now.
Yep.
And they're also going to bring us to the moon. They're supposed to land us on the moon. And
Mm-hmm.
that's their role in Artemis. They're supposed to do it in Starship, and it's still under development. And there's a lot of people who are really interested in watching the development of Starship because of that. But the Crew Dragon has actually been used independently as a spacecraft. And there was a group of 4 people went up, and it's called Inspiration 4.
Yep.
I know you had people who talked about it on the show before.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so those are the kind of things that are in the newer things in the space area. I talk about the commercial space organizations. So there's a little bit of information like on Boeing or Astro Robotics, who is out of Pittsburgh here, which is pretty close to where we're at here.
Yeah, it is.
They're near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is their headquarters, and they are building landers they're under the Artemis umbrella. They're building landers.
Mm.
And they also took over, I don't know how many are following it, but the Marston Space, they went out of business and they were bought up by Astrobiotics.
I think it's Maston Space.
Maston, you're right. I keep saying Marston.
That's
and
okay.
I know it's Maston.
That's okay.
At any rate,
there's a lot going on.
Astrobiotics, I mean, you could go to their website and just see all of the careers for engineers and project managers and anything you can think of that goes towards building a lunar lander. So, and there's more than one group out there that's doing it, and they all are asking for people because, you know, I like to get that message out. I like to get that message out to educators because the educators are the one who push people towards careers. And what they do is they push people towards careers in areas that they think are going to be open and have available jobs. So anyone who's into STEM education is most likely pushing people into the latest aerospace exploration.
Oh, great.
Yeah, they should be. If they're not, I hope they come to my website.
Okay.
My particular favorite, of course, that is featured on the space page is Mars. What I did with Mars is I was an advisor for an Explorer post at it was called Post 633, and we were out of the NASA Glenn Research Center where I was working, and as part of my role there, I developed a Mars mission for the students. So we turned our students in our post into mission planners and astronauts. We made them apply for jobs, and we awarded them, position on the crew. You're a pilot, you're a doctor, you're an engineer.
You said they had to write their resumes?
They had to write their resumes. They went through interviews with us. They had to design their mission, decide when they're going to go, decide when they're going to arrive, and then
you said mission patch too.
They made their own mission patch and gave a report at the end.
Everybody could be involved.
Yeah. Now the mission that I did to Mars was based on NASA materials, and the reason being that we were teaching from NASA. So I heavily relied on NASA. I heavily relied on NASA's work, and absolutely NASA has done the most work of anybody on the planet. NASA has done the most research and investigation, spending the time, the effort, the energy, money to go to Mars. And they have 2 active rovers right up there right now to prove it. But but I often hear some people who've getting into space, just getting into space, and they're like, oh, SpaceX is going to beat NASA to Mars. Well,
maybe.
I don't think so. But
did you have some more comments, Jeff?
Yes, a lot more.
Okay,
yeah,
let's go. Let's have them.
Daniel, back on the Maya thing, didn't the Maya need 32,000 years of galactic observations to do their calendar?
Oh, they weren't around that long.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone was around that long.
They weren't around that long.
Yeah.
They had projected a calendar to go for many years, but it was not. And I understand why you're asking that. The old 20 to 2012 being the end of the Maya calendar.
Right.
The thing about that, and I put a lot of stuff about that on my site, but the Mayan calendar, it was a cycle. So the cycle doesn't end. If that cycle was ending and they were still actively doing that calendar, they would have had a new cycle in it. It never would have really ended if they were still and I actually did, because my web changes over time. I'm not sure, but if you go to the Maya page, you may or may not get a link to some Mayan people who gave, put out information about that.
Oh, very
They
cool.
didn't want people to think that the Mayan are still around. They didn't go anywhere. They've helped people understand what is written, and the symbol system that they use to write. They help people. They help how do you say it? I'm having trouble talking. Epigraphers.
Okay.
To decipher what was being said in those texts.
Is that called the things that they drew? Are they pictographs?
I think that's what they're called. Yeah, it's pictures. It's pictures.
Yeah, they're pictures.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And David says, with respect, through the cultures like Maya, they gave us what we have today.
They did.
Yeah. And Daniel, how come NASA never figured out how to land boosters such as SpaceX?
That's a commercial thing. The NASA is kind of the vanguard of doing things.
And they had the DCX, they just dropped it.
Okay, here's the thing. The first people to do reusable rockets on the planet was SpaceX. That's a very good question, and I'm glad you brought that up, since I could talk about my website, but space interests me. And one of the things that I made a comment one time on a thing that I was reading, a YouTube video about, instead of like on SLS where they dropped all those boosters, they dropped off from the main booster and they landed in the sea. Well, I was watching a video where they were showing those very same rockets being returned to Earth on a heat shield, like a heat shield put directly on this heat shield. The 4 rockets are coming back to Earth on this heat shield. And someone replied to my comment, and I had to be like, well, look, I saw the simulation on a video. Well, within a couple of months, NASA actually on I think it was on the Atlas, they launched an experimental heat shield, giant heat shield that fell down through the atmosphere and landed. And that is the first test that we're doing. That is a technology demonstration test that NASA has already done. So NASA is figuring out how to land those boosters from those SLS rockets. They're figuring out how to land them. Okay.
Yeah.
So
we don't drive a car and then throw it away at the end of the trip.
Right. And one of the things that they were really up at arms about was that those boosters that are on the SLS, the one that they just fly, the Artemis 1 mission, those boosters, they're at the bottom of the sea. And I'm like, and that's such a terrible thing. But I'm like, at the bottom of the sea or sitting in some museum getting dusty, because that's where they're going to be if they're not on that SLS. And that's all I can say. I wish they would got their e-chill going in time to do that, but I don't think it's going to happen. They have to make new engines. They have to make new versions of those engines because they're dropping them, the ones that are there.
So here's someone new, Juan Aguilar. Welcome. Thanks for being with us. And we got some tools for you if you want to look for the space station at other times of the day.
Yeah.
Well, you know about this too, right?
I know all about it. Yeah.
Well, and in fact, it's only 5 a.m. right now. The ISS moves relative to the Earth in such a way that different weeks they'll be in different times.
Right. Sometimes they're in the mornings, sometimes in the evenings, and sometimes you can't see at all
because this is the daytime.
Yeah. Right. So there's at least two good sources for you. One of them is Heavens Above. And I would just do a search for Heavens Above. And then they have a whole slew of things down the left column of their page. Look for it's ISS passes, maybe.
Yeah.
Then you could also go and find Spot the Station. It's a NASA tool. You could get an email or you can get a text message, and it will show you when and where to look for it, and you base it on your location. And that would be true for Heavens Above as well, because if you put in like Lakewood, Ohio, where we are, you'll never see it because it's going to be over your location. You need to give them your city name. Usually.
Oh, right. You have to plug in your own city.
Yeah. And I think Juan has been using a resource like that because he seems to know when they're visible, and it's just. It depends on the week. And it shifts day to day, week to week, and so so just
always different.
If you don't like the passes this week, look next week.
Yeah, and some are better than others.
Yeah,
like some are like
they're kind of low.
They're like, oh, go out and look at this.
See.
It's going across the whole entire sky, and it's going to be very bright.
Yes.
And that's what you look for.
Right.
Is the ones that it's
bright, high, bright. And remember one thing too, the smaller the number, the brighter the object looks.
Yep. Okay. David, Dawn, I am young, handsome, and likable with good contacts. If I could get Richard interested, would you go for a launch?
Richard? Who's Richard?
Branson? Oh, Richard Branson.
Yeah, don't be fooled. He's been at this for 50 years. Or more.
All right, David, if you want to get with me and Pam about women astronomers, there's always email.
Oh, he knows how to get a hold of us.
I know he does.
That's how he found us.
I've seen you on here before.
And I think Cliff objected to my not making a comment last time. I was being good. I didn't say it. And David, Dawn, have you ever spoken or met to any of the remaining forgotten 13?
You're talking about the Mercury, the women who were tested by the very same doctor as the NASA astronauts were tested by, and sometimes the women performed even better in some of the areas.
I'm trying to think. I don't believe I have. I don't think I did meet the author of the Mercury 13 book.
Oh, very cool.
I met her, and she signed my copy.
Oh,
I don't know if I could find it, but yeah, I did meet her. I met her when I worked at NASA.
Oh, cool.
You know, there was always people like that. You know, would come in and they'd sell their book in the bookstore. There's a little bookstore in the
I met Sally Ride at NASA when I was a volunteer there. Got her to sign something.
Yeah, I've actually met a lot of astronomers because I used to work the outreach. Yeah, and I've talked to them and got to know them a little bit. Don Pettit is from around here, and
Oh, he is? Okay.
yeah, and there's another guy, and his name is.
Oh yeah, I checked one time, and Ohio had the most. Don't you make your comment? I had the most astronauts from any one state. So yeah, I know what you want to say.
Yeah,
I
met a
get
lot
that
of
far away.
I met a lot of them. I was on the. I'll tell you a little story. I was on the Centennial of Flight. I was doing outreach for the Centennial of Flight for NASA, and there's a picture of me at a little picnic afterwards, and I'm standing with these three guys, and one of my friends we're looking at these pictures that I had on my computer or something when I got back, and she looked at my picture. She's like, Dawn. She's like, Dawn, and I'm like, yeah, I know. They're all administrators of NASA. The chief administrator of NASA.
Oh wow. They
were in, two of them were acting and the other one was only in for a short time. But there I am standing, clowning around with them at a picnic, and I'm in the middle of them. So, I got to talk to them, and I got to know some of them. I won't go into any more stories because I could have a lot.
We could be here for days.
Yeah, no, we're not going to go there. I'm not pulling out my book. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely, Cliff. I actually have places where I put in
we should do that to some
links
too.
I put in links to other people, and there's definitely a place for your club on Astros, and we'll get it on there. I would love to. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, we got to do that
especially if there's more women than men in your club. I got to see this.
Absolutely. Yeah, great idea. I wish I'd have thought of that. So cool. Thank you for asking.
Oh, David, is it so that the NASA doctors selecting the first astronauts felt women's menstrual cycle and their frail bodies were unfitted space
You're
flight?
Funny. So I like to see you all have a baby.
Well, that might have been the thought until they were tested.
No, actually, NASA shut them down. NASA shut that guy down. He was doing he was conducting his own tests. He was using his own resources, and yeah, NASA.
I didn't want to. I'd like to make a comment here, okay?
Yes, please.
And I hate to, because it makes me sad, but the Mercury 13, when that was being put up before the powers that be at the U.S., there was a lady, a very famous pilot. Her name was Jacqueline Cochran, and she went up and testified that they shouldn't do it.
Was it Jackie Cochran?
She was not selected. Yes, it was. She was not selected, and she went up there and she presented a case against letting the women go. So
that's right. I
I can't speak to any of the rest of what you asked. I don't know anything about that, but I do know that, and I hate to besmirch somebody, but she did that herself. I didn't do that.
Yeah, and I don't know that it would have made a difference either way.
Exactly.
I think it was just one more excuse, not. It wasn't.
Exactly.
Right.
And she didn't give reasons to do it.
The crazy thing is the Russians kept beating us in all these areas, including sending a woman up first, 20 years before Sally Ride, who was our first.
Yeah, but they just did it to send a woman up first.
Yeah,
they did.
But they didn't have the same kind of prejudices, I feel, that we did in the United States in this regard.
I don't know about that.
Because there were a number of women. It wasn't like they had one token woman. She went up first. There were a number of Russian women that were part of their cosmonaut corps.
Yeah,
I think it was mostly PR though for them.
I would say, but of course, so was Yuri Gagarin. He was good looking. He passed all the tests.
Well,
he was gregarious.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have sent up anybody, but they picked a very charming, nice young man.
Well, I'm sure they picked charming, nice American young men pilots too.
Oh yeah, but Deke Slayton wasn't beautiful.
No, I know. No. Well, yeah. I mean, appearances can always influence the situation being selected for things.
Right, but there were some exceptions as well in our core.
Okay. So Daniel, on the edge of forever guardians of the gate enough to ward off paramount intellectual
They
control.
haven't found me yet.
Well, it sounded like you were saying it was similar, but not the same.
Yeah.
It is not the same. It's not the same.
No. And of course, if you made a lot of money, somebody might go,
No, I'm not making any
cease and
money.
desist.
I'm sorry, I'm not making any money.
She is not a threat to anybody
I'm not,
out there.
I'm not a threat to anybody. Absolutely. I promise you.
Yeah, the space
you can get on your phone.
Yes, they do.
Oh, yeah.
It's heavens
Yeah.
above.
I think,
You can just put it on your phone.
yeah, I think that he's talking for Juan there.
Right.
Back to that conversation.
Yeah, I actually downloaded it a few months ago, and it's stellar. It's superb.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Stellar, huh?
Maybe I should do that.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Maybe I'll go out and look more often if I do that.
Well, I don't think I'll have much more luck with the clouds, so.
Absolutely.
Oh, it definitely was.
It was an error. It was the era of American history as well.
Well, and then they had some requirements that women weren't even able to get, like a jet fighter pilot.
Oh, right.
Women weren't doing that then. I mean,
and never mind the fact that most women weigh less than men, and it was pound for pound how much it cost to get you into space.
Well, not just that, but how much water they needed to drink and food they needed to eat, and there were a ton of really good, reasons to include women on space flights.
Yeah, there was good reasons.
Or a full woman crew, that would have been.
And not only that, but those medical tests showed that those women were, in some cases, better fit than some of those men that they put up there.
Right.
They were. They literally they were.
They had the right stuff. They didn't have the right thing.
The human body, actually, the female is a little has some advantages. Endurance, but protected with the protection of different parts of their body. There's a lot of biological things, and I wouldn't imagine that it's a tremendously big advantage, but there's a little bit of.
And there were some psychological things too. I thought that turned out better for the women.
The isolation tank.
Oh right, yeah. In fact, Wally Funk, who just went up, the guys were going nuts. They didn't want to be in there, but Wally was like, "I'm cool." Like for hours and hours, 18 hours in a row or something.
She had no problem.
She liked it there.
Yeah. Oh, it's quiet. Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody's a little different, but that was amazing. Yeah. 150 years.
Cliff.
What did I miss?
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about.
Okay. Please clarify.
And then, still only 33% of all NASA employees are female.
We're getting better. At least it's not 25 or 15.
I believe it. Engineering. We need to get more women into engineering. I mean,
women just think a little different, and the problems can sometimes be. You need that. You need a
exactly
a bit different perspective.
Saying that they're a little bit different doesn't mean they're any less capable of being a good engineer.
Yeah, any board I would have, I'd have kids, and I'd have senior citizens, and I'd have any culture you could think of, just to have that somewhat different perspective,
the diversity
on the problem and how to solve it. On how to solve it.
On
collaboration. I read a whole book about it.
Yeah, collaboration.
And it's the more diverse viewpoints you can get, the better it serves you. For one thing, you have to sort of explain it to each other, and then you start thinking different because you want them to understand you. You're not talking at the same level as someone up here. You're trying. A great example is Eureka. They had to explain things to the police officer, right? He was a federal marshal. They kept having to explain things like, they would think about it differently, and they understand better. So yeah, diversity.
It definitely diversity.
Since we're talking about the women, you want to go into that?
Yes, she was. She's up. There's stuff on her in there.
Yep. Well,
There's stuff on her in there.
Oh, we got more comments.
Lastly, they keep coming in. Lastly, Dawn,
great.
And it's only an observation. Does your interest in archaeoastronomy encompass aspects of YUK?
When those astrologers are doing hard astronomy, it does.
So
really
what is
does.
YUK? I don't know what he's
Yuck.
saying there.
He's saying yuck.
Oh,
Oh.
yuck, astrology.
David,
Like
you
sick, okay.
forgot your explanation point after the K there. Yeah, no, astrology, there's a problem with astrology that I see, and that is that it is, since the age of enlightenment, astrology, is like poo-poo. And the other thing about astrology, which probably really escapes people today, is that in the past, people took that astrology and, oh, astrology is destiny. Astrology is destiny. If you are this sign, you need to be in these professions. And they tried to stamp that on people. But the truth is
they were intertwined. Like
they were intertwined, and to me, like, I've been studying the Mesopotamian astronomers, and I don't have them out yet, but I will. I will. This is one area that I want to work on. The Mesopotamian astronomers, they were doing astronomy, and they are the ones who figured out, like, the eclipse cycle. They're the ones. It was their astronomy program figured it out. Now, what they believed that the stars were gods, and they were sending messages to them, and they were studying the sky to understand that message. But their message was only for kings or countries. It wasn't these natal horoscopes that really, in my mind, they are a kind of a Greek application.
Oh,
okay. The Greeks invented that. They invented that at the end of the, when they were in Egypt, and when they were ruling there about that time frame, they kind of invented the natal astrology. And, it's, it just doesn't, it's all about characters. It's all about archetypes. Think of the Greeks and how they were into drama. It is definitely totally, that was Greek. But unfortunately, during time, humans are very superstitious. It's ridiculous. We still are.
Oh yeah.
But
won that game, got to use the same everything.
Right. and I mean like they wrote these little things on pieces of paper, rolled them up, and you're supposed to put that in your grave, and it's gonna give you everlasting life when you die. They sold thousands of those to people. They find them all the time. So yeah, I have many different ideas about astrology, but those astrologers, some of them were astronomers.
You want people to remember you? Tell them astronomy, astrology, whatever.
Oh yeah, but it's true. It's true.
You get looks, let me tell you.
I get really mad. I get really mad because I'll be like looking up something on when is Mars in retrograde, and I go and I put in the search item, and all these astrology sites come up, and I'm like, yeah, right. Mercury, I forgot.
I've had that so much.
Yeah, I know.
Mercury's in retrograde. Okay.
I mean, it means a lot. It means a lot more to me than it does to them. It means to me that we're going to be passing Mercury, or Mercury's going to be passing us, rather. Mercury, it's different for Mars and Mercury.
It's kind of wonderful that practically anyone can get something out of the night sky and the stars and whatever your bent is.
Okay.
You got more comments?
Oh yeah, lots.
Okay. Wow, David.
David.
Okay. You like my vest? There's a big long story about the vest.
What else you got?
Okay. Daniel, seems like there's a persistent sexist cultural belief that women become judgmentally unstable in correspondence with their monthly cycles.
Let me tell you,
Yeah.
guys go through them too.
Yeah, well, I definitely, I agree with you. I agree with you, Daniel. And the really funny thing is that I've heard it said, and I don't know any examples to point you, but there's a lot of women who were competing in the Olympics and they were in the middle of their periods,
Mm.
you know, and they won gold medals.
But they focused all that energy on.
No, yeah, I know. They were focusing their energy so bad.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, Cliff. In
Yeah, I
Australia,
saw
now
that.
has the first
Oh, that's cool.
female
So
3D
that's,
astronaut.
that's cool. That's really cool.
Very cool.
And
50 years.
Dave, 50 years.
I think
Oh.
Dave's been involved with this for at least 50 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when Dave asks questions, he sometimes knows the answers. He's just trying to find out what you know, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave's done a lot of stuff too.
Yeah.
What else you got?
That's it for comments for right now. You want to?
Okay. All right.
All right, you want to go to this one?
Well, yeah. Okay. So let's see. We've gone over the Star Women thing. Now I finished this. I finished the space. So let's go over to the Star Woman thing.
It's that gold in the middle,
that
Jeff.
star. There you
There
go.
it is.
There she is. And this Astra here. This is the site's avatar. I cover a lot of women's biographies, contributions. Like I said, you'll see some professional astronomical societies where they either are women or they have women, what would you call it, like chapters or whatever, where those women, like the AAAS, they have a definitely a group of women. It's astronomy, people in space, maybe in other sciences. Teachers, some of them are teachers. They are as well, you know. So I'm not going to do an in-depth visit to any of this, or these are the subpages. But I would urge you to keep your eyes open for Nancy Grace Roman, an astronomer who worked for NASA. She was instrumental in sending many of the telescopes into space that you know, in different sizes, shapes. She did it for years and years. She was a very, very staunch supporter of the Hubble Space Telescope. She died in 2018, and NASA, in her honor, their next space telescope, which will be launched in a few years, it's called the Nancy Grace Roman Telescope, or Roman Telescope. And you will be hearing a lot about the Roman Telescope, just like we are now about the James Webb. The Roman Telescope, it has the mirror, the same diameter as the Hubble's. It's 2.4 meters in diameter, but the field of view is 100 times greater than what Hubble can see.
What does that mean for the equipment? What can it do? What will be the improvement over Hubble for that reason?
They were saying I believe that she was going to do dark matter and dark energy work.
Oh, way cool.
To answer your question, the Hubble Space Telescope has a very, very tiny field of view. It's very powerful, but for that power, you get a smaller field of view, smaller and smaller. And the Roman telescope will be able to see a larger portion of the sky.
Okay.
So in other words, when when you're stitching together all those little pieces of the view, the piece of the view you're stitching together from the Roman telescope is bigger than what you get from the Hubble telescope.
Okay. Is the trade-off that it'll be dimmer? Because I know there's always trade-offs. You stop it down and you have less light coming in. You bump up the amplification.
It depends on what you want to look at. Now, the James Webb telescope, you're talking about infrared.
Yeah.
So, but we need to compare, Roman to Hubble.
Okay.
Okay. There's also another telescope that is being built and supposedly is going to be launched next year, which is Chinese. And it's supposed to have this massive field of view, but well, we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. We'll see that.
Moving over to the next one.
So yeah,
We've got some more. So Cliff says, yeah, you have friends in Australia.
I'd love to go there. Wouldn't that be fun to go?
Scott says, I become mentally unstable sometimes and it has nothing to do with the period. Yeah.
Thanks, Scott. We like the solidarity. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, me too. But for me, it's the comma that does it.
I think you have other reasons. You want to move to the next?
Okay, well,
we got more.
The
Russian Cosmos?
Russian Cosmos. Rush Cosmos?
The
you
company?
mean Rush Cosmos?
Yeah.
Yeah, Rush Cosmos.
Company, right, Daniel? Let us know.
No. These, I believe you're talking about the Russian Russian equivalent to
NASA, basically, right?
Yeah. And it's called Roscosmos. That's the name of it. I've done a little bit of work, research into the area, but I am planning on actually doing a whole page on them someday. I just recently posted the China space program, and there's a piece on the Canadian space program. I think those are accessible on the space page. But eventually, I'm going to have all the space agencies going to have their own page and talk about a little bit about them and their accomplishments.
Cool.
There's Indian. There's JAXA.
Yeah, the Indians actually had the equivalent of a Delta II. My boss went over to Japan. Oh, sorry, Japan. It's Japan. Beg your pardon.
Japan, yeah.
Never mind.
Japan. No, the Indians. They are actually working on a kind of a shuttle type. Maybe something that can send humans up in space. I don't want to call it a shuttle because, Dragon doesn't launch on a shuttle. It launches on just that rocket. So a rocket where they would put something. There's also another Dream Chaser. Yeah, you guys know about Dream Chaser?
Heard about it. Don't know much about it.
Yeah, Dream Chaser. They are getting their ship ready. They will first deliver cargo to the ISS, but they are planning on it being human ready. And wherever I talk about it on the site gives the date. Off the top of my head, I don't know it right now. Okay.
Yep. Okay, lots more, but they're kind of Cliff. Short Cliff. Most of astrology is about getting men to fight wars, to my mind.
I thought it was about advising the king so that they get a good pay.
Yeah.
I thought that was religion that was getting them to fight.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was that with Janie? Courtesy laugh.
For my comment. Okay. Daniel, are you familiar with Russian cosmism? Big influence in early 20th century space enthusiasm.
I am not.
Oh,
where's my notepad? I need to write that down. Russian cosmism.
See the show.
Yeah.
Just watch the show later.
I'll watch a show later.
Yeah.
Yes. That doesn't mean I'm familiar with what you want
either one
to talk about. But go for it, Daniel.
Okay, Cliff, I don't know what you're referring to there, unless you're talking about maybe making some reference about David's age. So I'll let you and David take that one out.
Probably. They're friends, can you tell? This is how guys do friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Daniel, Nikolai. Okay, yeah. I'm not gonna. It's that. 1829 to 1903, an Orthodox Christian philosopher. precursor of transhumanism. I think that's the Russian cosmism.
Okay.
Cosmism.
So
All right. I'm gonna write it down just because I like paper.
well, take it off the screen when you see the show again, because that name, that's
Yeah. Screenshot it.
I don't know about them. I don't know about him.
mhm. Yeah. So
I have
But
no
that's
expertise in this area.
Yeah.
that's the last of those
I
comments.
only know that the Soviet thing they just killed religion in Soviet Union.
Mhm.
Ready for the next segment?
Yeah, okay, we're gonna go to the near Earth asteroids. This is
Yep, that one.
Yeah, this is a sub-site that I wrote in 2013. The asteroid mission page on there is very dynamic. It includes missions to the asteroids in the asteroid belt as well as near Earth objects. Those pages they give a lot of information about asteroids in general, and the different classes, planetary defense, making observations. It's gotten, I think it gets harder and harder for amateurs to make contributions because of these massive amount of telescopes that are automatically doing these searches. But I suppose you could still discover an asteroid. I'm trying to think of what else. So yeah, I always got interested in this mission that NASA was trying to take an asteroid to the moon and mine it and use it for experimentation and everything. It's kind of on the wayside now, but that's how it got there. I got all excited about it and I wrote the whole page. But on there, in there, you're gonna find Osiris Rex is going to return from Bennu this year. It's not next year yet. 2023, Osiris Rex is going to return.
Cool.
16 Psyche is a large metallic asteroid that there's a mission going there. It was canceled. They were supposed to launch in September, and they had to cancel it because they didn't have their software integration prepared.
Oh.
And if you ever work in the space industry, you know that that's not a quick fix. It does have a new launch date. And of course, most of you probably know about the DART mission where we crashed into the moon and changed the orbit of Didymos. And DART also is on the planetary protection page. I talk about planetary protection and a lot of historic of the planetary protection, historic searches for asteroids. You'll find that all in there.
Cool.
We have really covered that Mayan astronomy area.
Thanks for all the questions. Wait, this is a short segment.
If you go over to the picture there, Jeff.
Yep.
The next one over, yeah, that is the El Caracal. I don't think I'm saying it very well. Observatory of the Mayans. They use the little windows at the top there. I think they made observations of Venus.
Oh, cool.
It's fairly well accepted. One of the things about Mayan astronomy is they used the buildings. They lined up their buildings on stars and whatnot. And it's really kind of funny because they had the practice of like tearing things down every 52 years and building them up again. And when I hear that, I suspect that maybe the precession was getting in there somehow because that's just about enough time for precession to affect your alignment.
Right.
But I don't know for sure.
Gotta tweak the building a little bit.
Yeah, I have not. Do not have my pages on Mesopotamian and Egyptian astronomy. And believe it or not, the Egyptians really were astronomers,
Mm-hmm.
despite the fact that, there were people who were experts who said they weren't.
Yeah, I can believe they were.
Yeah, it set back understanding of Egyptian astronomy for, 50 years. No big deal, right?
Well,
We're just now figuring out a lot of what they did.
well, in fact, the pyramids they had one side lined up with Polaris.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, they can tell how old a pyramid is by the direction it's pointing because Polaris precesses in our sky. And so
Well,
they
no,
can
not so much Polaris. Say the pole star.
pole star, yeah.
Is what you really mean. You mean the pole star.
Pole star, yeah.
Yeah.
And it precesses, and so they can tell because they were lined up exactly. So the fact that they're slightly off from each other, means that
Fascinating. Good.
Yeah.
And that is definitely a part of archaeoastronomy. That is one of the things they do. They are concerned with the measuring of buildings, and there's a guy, I think I want to say his name is Juan Argiles. Anyway, they had this big survey where they're going around all over Egypt and making measurements to find out which way things were pointed. You guys might have heard of the Orion, what did he call it? Where he claimed the pyramids were aligned with Orion's belt, which I didn't take much stock in. Pyramids are kind of a mystery because they're supposedly tombs for great rulers, but it doesn't kind of make sense, and they never really found a great ruler there. And that's given as evidence, but I say evidence of what? Because those places were looted all the time from antiquity forward. They were always being looted. So how do you know what was down there? But they've had all kinds of ideas about what the pyramids were, and what was in them. I don't really go into that, and when I talk about Egyptian astronomy, I'm going to be talking about observations of Deccan stars that the Egyptian astronomers did. There's no, even though they had writing, there was no written record of any astronomy. And because there was no written record of any astronomy, people were able to conclude there wasn't any. But the reason why there was no written records, I personally believe, is because they weren't allowed to write it down. That astronomical information was only meant for the knowing, the people with the power, the people with the power. And the reason why, because knowledge is power. I remember how I told you they made those little scrolls, and they made the little scrolls and they buried people with them. Like in the past, from things that they've drawn on the walls, the pharaohs given instructions on how to get through the the afterlife, the netherworld, whatever you want to call it, the underworld. They get instructions. Well, if anybody can give the pharaoh instructions on how to get through the afterlife, then And I mean, I know you probably think I sound like some kind of crank or something, but I really and truly believe that they were not allowed to record that stuff because that knowledge was being protected, because that knowledge was powerful. And that's all there is to it. But the Deccan stars,
the crops based on the seasons, and there was a lot based on what time of year things were.
Another thing you have to realize is they were on a lunar calendar. They perfectly understood that the year was 360 something odd days, because they obviously realized that it didn't line up to even days. And they basically, I think, I'm not trying to remember if they lopped off those last days and didn't pay attention to them. They let it cycle through, because it's always a cycle, and sooner or later it's going to come back to where you originated it from. But they that knowledge was not like, if I came to you from Greek and I knew astronomy, you could go in there and there are stories where these people went there to learn astronomy. Well, evidently you can share knowledge with people who already have knowledge, right? But they weren't allowed to write it down. So I'm going to talk about how they had these shifts of people that went out and what they looked at and how it might have worked. But I'm not there yet. I shouldn't even talk about it because I'm not there.
Stay tuned.
What may be interesting to some people.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. I didn't know you were coming back in.
Oh, yeah, no. Well, if you stop the field down, maybe you're
Less
right.
light.
Maybe it doesn't affect the field of view. It affects the magnification.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Maybe
and
not
less
the,
light.
maybe not the field.
There's
of
always
view.
trade-offs. There's always trade-offs.
And then Daniel says, some say all religions have their basis in Egyptian mysticism.
That's interesting.
Actually, I don't think you're too far off on that, Daniel.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep. And then astronomy has
Oh, what I was going to say, and I kind of lost my train of thought. They use this lunar calendar, and the pharaoh was not allowed. He was forbidden to add an intercalculary month or day or anything else. The pharaoh was not allowed to touch the Egyptians' calendar. He wasn't allowed. And we think the pharaoh's all powerful and all that, but he wasn't allowed to intercalculate. So he did not have control over that calendar.
well,
That's why I think it was so special, because pharaohs could read.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, yeah. The pharaohs were not really in charge. I mean, one pharaoh decided to go against the priest class and create his own religion. And that didn't last very long before the priests rallied the people to whack them.
No, you're 100% correct, Jeff.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. And who took over? The people who keep the calendar.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're not going to go there. Actually, it was the priests of Amun.
Yep.
The priests of Amun. Yeah.
Yep.
And they were really, they put their people on the throne. A couple generations. Yeah. That's what happened.
Any more comments?
Nope, that's it. You want to
Okay,
go back?
let's go to the observer page, the last area.
The last circle there.
The last circle. There's a picture of a telescope looking at a comet.
I love it.
I don't remember which one it is. Hyakutake? Maybe?
Oh, Hyakutake? Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, that's the observers page is for people who are interested in starting out observing. There's observing information. There's aids. You could be more advanced and use it. There's also, I have a Celestial Challenge out there, which is an observing program. It offers beginners 5 areas to choose to look, to study. So you could just take the naked eye group and look for naked eye objects. You could take the star group and look at star clusters, double stars, anything to do with stars. The Virgo clustered galaxies is really galaxy deep sky hunting, because those are the closest galaxies to our galaxy, the closest cluster. In fact, we're probably part of I'm not sure if it's the Virgo cluster or the Coma cluster. They're both in the same area of the sky. I'm thinking Virgo. Anyway, that is for deep space. And then there's the binoculars observing. So basically it's a checklist where you check off what you see. And I think, I was talking to Pam, I think might be something that you might get interested in taking a shot at throwing it in.
We'll tell our audiences about it. We'll look it up and put it together in the notes.
So I talk about solar and lunar eclipses. I'm behind. I need to get a solar eclipse 2024, which is going over my house in 2024, April 8th. One of the cloudiest times of the year. It kind of doesn't matter. It's always cloudy here.
Yep. Sort of the opposite of Southern California.
And I talk about comets. I mentioned deep sky observing, separate from the other. So that's where you might want to go if you're starting out and want to learn.
Cool.
You know, as opposed to the astronomy is where you're finding those professional organizations.
So you're up to the question mark. Unless you got more comments. You got more comments?
Just a couple.
How wonderful.
Oh, I should actually show them, huh?
Yes, please.
So Daniel says, people,
The power to the people. Astronomy power. I like it.
boy, we sure do today. You can get anything on the internet.
Oh,
I'm telling you,
amazing.
the resources out there. Live long and prosper.
Thank
Daniel.
you. Likewise, Daniel.
Yes.
We got a little bit more. Hang around.
Yep. Okay. That's
Yeah,
it.
you
for
guys are
comments.
ready to hear about it.
Yep.
I'm
So,
willing.
so let's see. You said question mark, right? Yep.
Yeah, the giant question mark. There we go. The monthly almanac. If you click on that, if anywhere on the site, if you click on that giant question mark when it appears, you will be taken to the what I call the celestial almanac a lot. What's up in the night sky? This is a monthly. I issue this every month. I'm really trying to get my site to push more people to get to this page because I fear it's underused for the amount of what I put into it. So that it's been online for, it's been an almanac for, this is the 27th year. It was started by a friend of mine. His name is Ron Leesburg. He was a retired high school science teacher when he started it all those years ago. And when I did my site redesign in 2006, I asked him if I could use the almanac he was sending me, if I could webize it, if I could put it on the internet, and he agreed. So I took basically the format that is laid out here is basically what he developed, and I stole it, but I webized it. So in that first block there where it says almanac pages, previous month, home, next month, okay, that's how you can go from month to month. The home, I don't think the home of Astra's Celestial Almanac is all that interesting. It basically tells you what I'm going to tell you right here. But I have it on there because people, I believe, accept it. Now, whenever you hit next month on this and you're on this page, what this is, that goes to this page. In other words, the most current issue is always labeled with this page as this page. It's called New Up. And then I put a date on it and I start the next one as New Up. So it's always going to be, you're always going to get, if you see anywhere on Astros it says current month, it's going to come to this page. The features there pretty much explain how the site works. There's a couple of areas. So there's a calendar on there, daily calendar, the lunar almanac's on there, and then there's a monthly topic. But we start out with, and there's not a link to it because you can see it under where it says Happy New Year, because this is the first issue, is the only one's going to say that. That first paragraph appears. It tells you what stars are up basically that month. Unless you are up over in Australia or something, UFC something different. Then underneath that, I call it the planetary roundup, and that's where I talk about the planet. And if you notice the first thing on Mercury, it says favoring the southern hemisphere. Yeah, Mercury always favors the southern hemisphere, guys. And it has to do with the angle of the ecliptic and where Mercury is. So then after that, if you keep going down there, I got the calendar of events. and it's a, it's a table, and this will tell you day by day. The way I do this is, Jeff, you want to show off the handbook?
Your book,
My
yes.
major source of data is this handbook. I get it every year. It's published by the let me get it right, Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. And they publish this and put it out. And I go through this book. On this particular issue, the January issue, I go through the book. I go into the back. I look at the planetary scene and I summarize it all. But I get a lot of my data from here. I also, when I'm writing this, I use the Stellarium planetarium program, and I often verify facts and put in things. I put in things that are not in that almanac. They put the things in by time on UT. My almanac is basically formed to North America because I believe that's where most of my viewers are. Of course, there are times I must use UT to, describe something, and then I do. That's just the way I do it. And the way I arrange the events is from closest to the earth going outward. So if you're looking for a meteor shower, that's going to come up always early. If you're looking for Venus, that's going to come before Mars or Jupiter because they're further away. So that's how I determine the order in which I place those events in that. And it isn't specified anywhere on the site. I've never had anybody ask me. Whatever. But if you go back to the next section, Jeff.
Yes.
It's
okay.
the
here or next here?
Yeah.
Okay.
The screen share. Jeff's in control of the screen share tonight.
Oh, which next section? I'm on the lunar almanac.
Yeah, lunar almanac is the next section.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. You want them to see it?
Thank you.
So I put in the lunar almanac, and the lunar almanac, I do not go by UT. I look at my calendar and I put what's in my calendar. It's really, I mean, that's the way I do it. Probably I should do it by UT, but I'm North America centric, and so I do it by the calendar because that's what you see. I know my editor gets down on me for that periodically, but this tells you the deep sky objects during the new moon and the full moon. It says best viewed before local midnight. The moon, yeah, I would say, you don't want to be looking at that thing. It's way too bright. Get a filter or something. But then we go to the topic of the month, and of course, it's a preview. They don't change maybe every month if the topic is still relevant. I leave the topic of the month up for January and February. I write a lot of different articles on here. Mercury does a lot because it goes so fast. Venus also does a lot, but not as much as Mercury. And then I have a lot on here on Mars because Mars is just after opposition. It was at opposition on December 8th. And I fill out the whole story of how Mars is going back to hide behind the sun. So there's a lot of text in this particular year because of when that happened. The end of December 8th is like the end of the year.
Right.
So if you keep on going, you'll see I've done Jupiter, Saturn. I only do the naked eye planets, and then I do the eclipses. And it's very interesting. There's a hybrid solar eclipse this year.
Oh, right.
Yeah, very fascinating. Particularly in this eclipse, at the end and the beginning of the eclipse, It's an annular eclipse, not a total eclipse.
Mm.
This hybrid eclipse is mostly total. There's only a little bit of area that is not. And that depends on how the Earth and the moon are set up. Because, it's orbiting planets out there. So there you go. That's about the end of it. What's up in the night sky?
Okay.
What's this?
Got any more comments for us?
Yeah. Daniel, one last comment. Apparently, there is research that shows 4 major human neurotransmitters corresponding to the 4 monthly lunar phases. And I'll let you guys read those yourself because
Dopamine, certainly common.
Dopamine.
Yeah. So
yeah, interesting.
It's very interesting. Neuroastronomy. It's very interesting. Like the Babylonians, they assigned astrologically medications to different astrological things, and they put the medications towards this or towards that. But I think they applied that astrology, those astrological designations. They knew what the thing did. They didn't, so, and so if you're a doctor or a scientist or herbologist, whatever you want to call them, you knew that medicine based on that astrological designation. But I don't know, maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's some neurotransmitters that I'm not aware of. I only know astrologers say stars do not, they don't impel. They don't compel. Well, I'm an astronomer and the stars compel me. Okay. That's the difference between astrology and astronomy. In a nutshell.
You doing the second?
What are we doing?
Handbook?
Oh, you want to do this? Yeah, we showed it.
Oh, we did. Okay.
We showed it.
All right. I don't know where we are now.
You thought we were gonna
some stellar events this week.
stellar events.
Okay.
Let's
cool.
go for it.
Yeah, January 6th.
This time I'm gonna help you.
Yeah, January 6th through January 13th. This week is kind of quiet, and Donna's helping us tonight. She tracks some different things than we do. We tell you about things that are pretty easy to find, see, or do. With Dawn's background, she delves a bit deeper into some of the technical things. So if you understand them, you can describe them better to other people.
Yeah, Dawn's been at this way longer than I do, so I keep it simple.
Okay, on January 6th, we have the full moon, and this is often referred to as the full wolf moon or the ice moon. On January 7th, we have a conjunction between Pollux, the alpha star of Gemini. It will be 1.9 degrees north of the moon. What that means?
Yeah. Oh.
Well, we had you get stellarium up. I don't think we did.
No,
we were playing with it the other
we
day.
were playing with it. We decided not to do
Okay,
that.
all right. That's my mistake.
And
yeah.
I don't know.
And Mercury, and also on this January 7th, Mercury is in inferior conjunction.
Right.
Okay, that means it has come between Earth and the Sun.
And I did have a diagram if you pulled that up to screen share.
Oh,
that's okay. That's okay. We can look at it later.
Yes, on different computers.
Okay, so January 8th, the moon is at apogee, and that means it's as closest to the Earth as it will get this time when it goes around. Apogee changes, the distance changes, but every time it orbits, it has an apogee, which is
perigee.
Yeah, and a perigee. Apogee is far away and perigee is close. It's like you're probably familiar with comets when they talk about they're at perihelion. That peri means close, and that goes for all orbits. Whenever you hear perihelion, perigee.
Yep. Even the Earth can be closer or farther away from the sun. We just passed one perigee, I think.
Yes.
Just perigee.
Yeah. The Earth comes into perigee in early January,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that, that is summer in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of Australians, they get the misconception. People always get the misconception, but because we're at perigee or perihelion, they're thinking that that's why there's summer, and it's caused by the Earth's tilt. But that's a common misconception all over the world.
That part of the world is closer to the sun. Later on, it's the northern hemisphere that's closer to the sun.
Well, and it's not even necessarily closer. It's the angle that the sun's hitting. Straight on.
That's true. Right, yeah. More beams straight down versus.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Okay. January 11th is the weekly space hangout, and it's 2023's first news roundup.
Okay, and then we got January 12th, Mars is stationary. Mars has been traveling in retrograde motion because it was being overtaken by the Earth when Earth and Mars came into opposition, where Mars is opposite the sun in the sky. And it starts to look, it seems like Mercury and other planets are changing their course in the sky. But actually it's because we're all moving around the sun. So after once it gets to a stationary point, it seems to pause for a moment. And this is all an Earth observation. It seems to pause, and then it starts going back into the other direction. When it does that, then it'll be going in its normal direction, and that motion is called prograde.
Okay.
Oh, Pam, you wanted the January 13th. Mercury is at its greatest heliocentric latitude north. So heliocentric, helio is the sun. So if you're standing in the middle of the sun, that is as high as Mercury will look north of you.
Okay.
This time around, okay?
Does that mean it's better for the northern hemisphere? Because you said it favors the southern hemisphere. Is it slightly better for us in the northern hemisphere, or no?
That has to do with the angle of the ecliptic to the horizon.
Okay.
And it's a situation between Earth and Mars. And I suppose if you waited around long enough, it probably processes through that too. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I never tracked that sort of thing before. I know greatest eastern elongation or western elongation. So thank you for that.
The heliocentric is you're in the center of the sun.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Did you want to do this part? Because I didn't put that there.
What's that?
I think you put that there. Greatest elongation is when Mercury appears.
Oh, you asked a question and I was answering it.
Okay. All right.
Okay, let's go for greatest elongation. Okay, this has to do with Mercury and Venus because they are inside Earth's orbit. So that's when they appear to be as far away from the sun as they can get. And it changes, because of our relative positions. Sometimes it appears to be more degrees away than others. So Venus can be 45 to 47 degrees away from the sun, and Mercury can be 18 to 28 degrees away from the sun. Wow. It has a more eccentric orbit. Mercury has a fairly eccentric orbit as planets go. Mercury and Mars are the most, it's the second. Mars is the second most eccentric.
Okay.
But Earth,
I didn't know that.
A lot of the other ones, they're Earth and Jupiter. They're pretty well on the plane.
Okay.
Straight on the plane of the sun.
Cool.
Not exactly, but kinda. They're closer to circular than us.
Yep. And January 13th, our Friday night show, and either Dawn Jenkins Part 2, if we haven't scared Dawn off,
if my voice lasts that long,
or a citizen science project that I found not too long ago. And you can find us Fridays at 9 p.m. Pacific time on the Everyday Spacer Facebook page and the Everyday Spacer YouTube channel. And Janie has a couple more comments for us.
Yay.
All right.
And Janie says, thank you for a wonderful conversation with brilliant stargazers and astronomy expert.
Thank
Dawn
you.
Jenkins.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yes. And she says, Friday the 13th.
All right.
Speaking of superstition.
Yes. So, a lot of times I'll talk about other events and activities, and I won't go into too much depth tonight, but I did want to mention, let me find it here. We have a lot. We're going to add yours too as well.
Of course.
So, okay, for the nominate a student with perseverance, they just closed the 5th opportunity. The awards are going to be announced on January 24th, and then they are opening the 6th opportunity on that very same day, January 24th. And remember, this is 6th through 8th grade students in the U.S. public, private, and home schools that are eligible, and teachers can nominate them because they've done something perseverance, an outstanding perseverance kind of thing. And there's some pretty cool awards with that. I think maybe next time we'll delve into it more if we have the chance. But yeah, there's a good link. And let's see, I think that was it. I keep looking for the Space Symposium that you attended, Jeff, but they don't have the April or May dates yet. It still says November the 12th.
Okay.
But I'll keep on that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, go back to you.
Okay. So if you or someone you know has done something interesting involving space exploration, science, or astronomy, we'd love to share our live.
Oh yeah, me. God, sorry. Join us next. It's only 1 o'clock or so. Join us next Friday, January 13th. When we may have Dawn Jenkins back. I'm going to be back in California, so it'll be a little bit different arrangement. And if we aren't having Dawn back just yet, maybe later, then we're going to talk about fishing for jellyfish galaxies. It's a Zooniverse citizen science project, and you said it was new, right, Jeff?
Relatively new. It's just new to me. It's listed as new, but we haven't looked at it for a while. So
yeah,
it's the most recent one added. It's actually about 75% done as of now.
Okay.
Unless they add more data, which these projects often do.
Yeah, they do. Right. And on the 20th, we have someone named Brooke, and I forget her last name. She'll be our guest.
Okay.
So, you want to do a shout out? I can't see the names, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we've got Janie and Daniel.
I remember Scott,
Cliff, and David.
Juan.
Yep. Juan was in there. And let's see, did anyone else show up in there? You got
Dawn's here, so.
Yeah.
She's often a good commenter.
Those are the people who've given us some good comments. And Daniel just says thank you again, Dawn. And
very welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Daniel. So appreciate you being here, and have a great week.
Yep.
We'll see you on Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
You got it on the internet.
Yep. My lucky day, just because.
Friday 13th.